Hey, everybody out there. Happy Valentine's Day. Aren't you excited? Aren't you in love, people? Don't you feel the love? Do you feel it coming from us? I hope you do.
Turn the person next to you and smooch them.
give him a big old smack on the lips. It's funny that we say a smack, because I was going to say give him a smack across the face, but that wouldn't be the romantic feeling I'm trying to cultivate here. Welcome to Wish We Were Then. This is the show that's been doomed to repeat history so that you may learn from it. What does that mean? How are we doomed to repeat history? It's a good question you have. Mark, why don't you explain this to them? What do we mean by this?
Well, we're sent back in time. The time boys. My time was Tony. What's our tagline again?
I just said it. So that's what you're explaining. Yeah, we go back in the past. We look at these years. We say, what was happening? What was the landscape like politically, pop culturally? Have you ever wondered what it was like? I was going to start singing Bismarcky. Have you ever met a girl that you tried to date? Well, we have the episode for you. It's Valentine's Day. We're going to give you a bunch of information about love all over a specific year. We picked a year that is, well, there was a reason we picked it. I guess by now we've done a couple of holiday episodes. You understand the reasoning for our choices is the movie of the year has been described as one of the most romantic movies of all time.
Yeah.
By quite a few people.
I didn't realize how much of that movie I already knew, but we'll get into that later.
Yes, we shall. Other than that, this is not a very lovey-dovey year, but...
No, I looked for it. I looked for the love, and it really wasn't there. A couple of songs.
Yeah, there's some songs. I have like one thing that's somewhat lovable, but we're getting ahead of ourselves. The late 1960s was all about free love, man. You know, it was a period of sexual awakening and revolution among the young people, and we're not constrained by all your morals and your ideas of what a relationship is, right? Well, the next decade, things started to change a bit. In a decade that would come to be known as the Me Decade, the idea of free love is kind of abandoned a little bit in favor of looking inward and maturing, finding out more about yourself, and getting into a stable relationship. And people were doing it younger than ever. I guess there's something about just, the kids rebelling against the rebellion of the late 1960s. They said, we'll show you, older kids. We're going to get in love real quick, fall in love, and have a committed relationship. And that all started to take shape immediately after the year of Woodstock. We are taking a look at the year 1970 and just how romantic it was. I was going to say sexual, but that's what we're going against that now.
And it's not. Compared to other years that we've done, this is not a very sexy year.
Yeah, I wonder if it's the people in charge or grown adults going like, hey, we need to, okay, that was fun for a couple of years. I mean, the late 1960s was crazily dominated by 20-year-olds.
Well, I would say that this has a lot to do with that too, because there are things that are happening that are, I would say, in direct response to what was happening in the 60s. But also that stuff is still resonating this year. For example, on May 4th, the Kent State shooting happened. The National Guard was deployed on May 2nd in response to an escalating student protest for the Vietnam War. 28 National Guardmen fired into a crowd of unarmed students in Ohio Kent State University, killing 4 and wounding 9 others. And then college campuses throughout the United States just started protesting about it like crazy. And this was just remnants of things that were, like I said, still going on in the 60s.
Yeah, and it feels so similar to today's climate. National Guard. And
that too.
Civilians and all that. On April 30th, Nixon had announced the Cambodian incursion. So he's trying to further expand the war in Vietnam at this point, despite the fact the public is extremely against it. And, the draft is going on, so many people are getting sent to war even though they don't agree with the fact that we're there in the first place. Nobody voted to be put in this war. This is not something that...
I don't think Congress even voted on it.
No, I don't think so. And so this was... People were pissed off with, I think good reason, personally.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
And there were, peaceful demonstrations and protests, a couple different ones throughout the day on May 1st on the Kent State campus. Then at night, I guess some people were leaving a bar, and then the way that the story is laid out is that they when they left the bar, they started throwing bottles at cop cars and like injured a cop. I guess during the scuffle, they broke a bank window, which is why more cops showed up. When the rest of the cops showed up, they tear gassed everybody. So then on May 2nd, there were supposedly a bunch of threats to local businesses saying that they were going to be burned down if they didn't put up anti-war slogans in their windows. You know, kind of like an Egyptian blood around the door.
Mm-hmm.
And that there were like, somewhat credible threats to the ROTC building on campus, as well as the Army recruiting station in town and the local post office. And also rumors of the students spiking the water supply with LSD and building tunnels under the city in order to complete their bombings. And It's just one of those like scaremongering weird shit that's like, the kids aren't doing that. Come on, calm down. They're fucking mad about the war. They're not building tunnels, you insane idiots. But that was enough. So when the governor got a hold of all of that, basically he said, let's call in the National Guard. So that was okayed right away. They're like, we can't have kids building tunnels and spiking everybody with LSD. We got to do something about this. So when the National Guard actually arrived, the ROTC building was on fire. So that much did happen. The protest went from being peaceful to getting violent. The thing they targeted was the ROTC building because that's the direct thing to them,
Yeah.
And as far as the lighting of the building, the FBI says pretty much anybody who was involved in it, they know for sure were not Kent State students. There were people from outside of the surrounding area or even not from there. They just were people who came to start getting involved in the violence. Take of that what you will. On the 4th, there was another peaceful protest of about 2,000 people. The National Guard came in and ordered them all to leave. Then when they didn't leave right away, they started gassing them. The gas wasn't working because it was too windy and like the area was too big. So then they just started to push against them. It was kind of a clash. People were throwing rocks and, it was something going on. So the National Guard started to press in. That dispersed the crowd. They went, a couple different directions. And the National Guard ended up going over a hill and into like a sports field. So they got kind of boxed in and they didn't really know where to go. While they were in there, the kids went kind of around the exit of it, just kind of staring them down. The guard decided to leave. As they pressed through the people, they opened up, allowed them to come through. And as they walked past him, they suddenly turned around, dropped onto their knees, and just opened up fire into the crowd. Some of the guardsmen have been, interviewed saying that they feared for their life, that they were surrounded. Some people say the kids started charging. But some interesting stuff here is that there were multiple accounts of guardsmen who said that they thought there was a sniper on the roof, that they had a shot come at them, they turned around and started firing back. The FBI says that didn't happen. Mm-hmm. A couple of the eyewitness accounts that I read, they were interesting because of the fact that they came from very notable people. Well, the first one was Chrissy Hind from The Pretenders. She was on campus that day, as was Gerald Castle of Devo and Chris Butler, who would go on to form the Waitresses. All these people pre-fame were just, either college students or visited there. Yeah. And they were all there for the actual shooting, and they kind of all described it the same way, that, it was something that everybody who was there, when the guard turned around and pointed their guns at them, they didn't scatter and stuff because they were like, they're not going to fucking, what are you going to do, shoot us? Like, we're just standing here, really? Like, everyone was like, a lot of people assumed they were blanks because they just thought there's no way they're just opening fire into a crowd like that. So that's why some people got tagged, because it was just like, nobody dropped to their knees or ran away because they just assumed there's no way this is actually happening right now. Super devastating, though. I mean, the picture from it is extremely popular. John Philo, inventor of Philo. John Philo was a student at the time in photography, and he took a picture of a young girl mourning over the body of a recently killed student. Mm-hmm. And she's got her arms up, and like it's one of the more famous photos from the Vietnam protests and stuff like that. And then just in response to the incident, the Nixon administration kind of seemed like they were okay with most. They didn't really come right out and say anything too negatively about it. Press Secretary Ron Ziegler had said, "When dissent turns to violence, it invites tragedy." So they were kind of just saying, we shouldn't have been protesting. So and then like you said, there were, other things across the country started opening up. I know there were multiple students bayoneted in New Mexico a couple days after this one. And then on May 15th, there were the Jackson State killings, where 100 black students were gathered to. The account of what happened here is that they apparently just gathered together in the middle of town to throw rocks at white drivers. I mean, it doesn't. It's like there probably was, even if they were doing that, wouldn't there have been a different reason they had assembled? It's not like you can get 100 of your friends and be like, "Let's go throw rocks at cars, dude." Like, that's
Who has 100 friends?
Yeah, it's weird. There was a rumor that a local civil rights activist had been killed. It wasn't a true rumor, and I don't know how widespread this rumor was, or if this really was the reason why it started to get violent, quote unquote. But it really got gnarly when a non-student, again, they know for sure this person didn't go to the school, lit a dump truck on fire. So then the cops came in and just basically started shooting. They killed 2 people, wounded 12 others, and the same type of situation. They claimed that they felt there was a sniper on the roof, and that's why they started shooting. In both of these cases, and I guess basically any of these across the country at this time, there was a lot of civil rights cases. I mean, that was the thing at the time. That's how they were attacking a lot of injustices. And, the courts found no wrongdoing. They said, yeah, this should never have happened. All right, see you later. That was basically their reaction to it. It was like, yeah, we agree this shouldn't have happened, but it also, for some reason, is not illegal for it to have happened. So nobody got in trouble.
That's crazy.
Yeah, I know. Really put a bad taste in my mouth. Really made me go, what? I don't think I like this Nixon guy after all.
The other stuff didn't do it for you? How about this? How about the Comprehensive Drug Abuse Prevention and Control Act of 1970? Established a federal policy to regulate the manufacturing, distribution, importation, exportation, and use of regulated substances. And then Title II of this act is a classification system of drugs to put into 5 categories, basically. This is where marijuana became a Schedule I drug, and which is ridiculous because the way that they base these classifications on is 1 is the potential medical use, and then 2 is a potential abuse to be able to, like, who would abuse it, how addictive it is. And marijuana is low on both of those, or it's like high on the medical list and low on the abuse list.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was just propaganda against it, I guess,
Yeah, but they're talking about classifying it in these days, but this is when it was signed in.
Is it still Schedule 1?
Yes.
Really? I thought it got knocked down during Obama trying to...
Yeah, they've been saying it for years that they're going to do it. It's all political stuff. But, yeah, so this would kick off the government controlling drugs throughout the United States. Oh, and speaking of that, it's kind of along the same vein. Nixon also signed a ban on cigarette ads and on TV and radio on April 1st. I know we talked about it. We talked about it when it was actually initiated or when it actually happened, because it didn't happen until the following year.
Yeah.
But we talked about the last cigarette ads that happened.
Yeah, the Flintstones cigarette ads and stuff like that.
On December 2nd, the EPA was established, the Environmental Protection Agency, if you don't know. So this came after a couple of things that happened. One was an article or a book that came out about how pesticides were being used in food and how they were going to have effects on us and how they were having effects on us. Mm-hmm. There was an oil spill in California in the 60s. And then near Cleveland, Ohio, there was the Cuonga River chemical spill, and it had caused a fire, and it affected multiple towns because it affected the waterways and things like that. This happened just the year prior. So all leading up to all of that was why the EPA was established, was because it's like we're clearly affecting the environment, and then that's clearly affecting us in turn. So we need to do something about it. So now we have the Environmental Protection Agency. Yeah,
the 70s was a huge decade for conservation efforts as far as nature and stuff like that goes. There was a lot of that. We talked about the tree hugging starting up, and I think that was 74, I want to say. So that like was the genesis of that. Mm-hmm. Yeah, because it was a bunch of people in South America who their livelihood was the trees. So they were like, you can't come in here and chop these all down for logs. So yeah, there was a lot of that kind of stuff going on. In the same vein as that, the first Earth Day was on April 22nd of this year. this was directly in response to the oil spill that you talked about a second ago. On January 28th of 1969, a Union oil well blew up 6 miles off the coast of Santa Barbara and dumped 3 million gallons of oil, killing over 10,000 seabirds, dolphins, seals, and sea lions. And so that was, kind of when that happened, the people involved were going to figure out what to do about this. So along with the EPA, they instituted Earth Day.
Just to make the public aware. Because, there's one thing about making a government agency designated for these things, but until you actually get in people's heads, like, hey, maybe you should recycle and throw your trash away and don't bury it in your backyard and burn it and shit.
Yeah, people need to know why these things are the way they are. It was initially just supposed to be it was described as a teach-in. It was just going to be like a local event that was going to be probably pretty dry and boring. And they decided, over time, they were like, we need to make this a big thing and get this national and come up with a bunch of events and make it fun and make it, something people are going to care about.
Mm-hmm. Makes sense.
Yeah, Earth Day is still a thing, but
oh yeah,
I
celebrated it. I remember in school and stuff, we would do stuff for it. And
yeah, that's a good point. I think as kids, you care more about it. It's not one of those holidays that carries over into adulthood. You're the same as, Arbor Day or whatever, where you're like, oh, look at that, it's Arbor Day.
Maybe we'll do an episode dedicated to Earth Day.
Maybe in April. April 20. Yeah, around when you get to the 20s in April, what's the most important thing to us? Earth Day. Here's my last. This is not necessarily news, but it does come up in newspapers. So I thought this was a fine place to put this, and it's probably my most romantic thing I have here. A comic strip first appeared in newspapers this year. The name of it is Love Is ... It was created by a New Zealand cartoonist named Kim Casale. She had made a series of drawings for her husband Roberto, just talking about how they were in love and stuff like that. She had little simple drawings of the two of them on there. And then in 1970, they started publishing them in newspapers. And they became a very well-known cartoon. Probably more so in New Zealand, I would imagine, than here. The reason I know about these, though, is that one time I was walking with Megan in a Hobby Lobby, and I saw a picture of a heart with two characters on it. I was like, hey, that looks like us. And she's like, that does look like us. And I almost bought it and then just didn't. And I thought it was just a one-off thing. And then a couple months later, I was like, what was that? And so I tried to figure out, and I ended up digging up and finding that it was this comic called Love Is. So this was already on my radar as a thing.
Okay. I was like, it's a pretty niche thing to find, but yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, but it is about love. One of the most famous of her drawings was one that said, love is being able to say you're sorry. Oh, that really set them on the map. For good reason, we will find a little later on in the episode. That one came out in 1972. Essentially, the comics are all just these. It's like a single frame comic where it says love is at the top because that's the name of it. And at the bottom, it would have the completion of the phrase. And it would be like, for instance, being able to say you're sorry, or another thing that describes what love is.
I thought it was you don't have to say you're sorry.
That's the tagline. That's what this is. That's why hers was popular. It was subversive.
Oh, gotcha. Sorry, I ruined it and cut it out.
Here's one that I'm looking at. It says, love is home cooking. And they're eating dinner at a dinner table. Not the greatest comic in the world, but hey, it came out in 1970. And
no comics are good. And they're never good for very long, even if they are good. You get one couple of good strips out of them, and they're like, this guy got a Pulitzer Prize for one. And then he's still doing it to this day, and they're never been as good.
It's a wild thing to have to come up with a new idea every single day. And then have to animate it and convey what you're trying to say. They just devolve into madness because you can't can't keep up with it. All right. I only have one item in the food world this year. Not a huge year for fast food. But in November, Wendy's introduced the first modern drive-through window. So that would change the world of fast food quite heavily.
In-N-Out was the first one to do that.
I guess, it being the first modern drive-through is kind of operative to this this statement here. There's a lot of that kind of thing where people say the first modern this or that. But the way the drive-thrus are, I guess, where you drive up, there's a window where you get your food specifically, was started here. I don't know about the In-N-Out stuff. Did you
The
find something?
In-N-Out, it says in 1948, In-N-Out revolutionized the drive-through experience by introducing a two-way speaker system and allowed customers to place orders directly from their vehicle, and then marked the first time a restaurant offered complete drive-through service, including circular driveways and no interior seating.
I do remember reading about that, and I think that was that they just were a drive-in.
No, the drive-through, so there was no seating.
I think they were initially like Sonic, where it was a circular driveway around the building, no seating, but you came in and ordered at a speaker, the same way Sonic is.
Oh.
I think. I mean, that's the
This says drive-through. I don't know.
who knows. I don't know if there's maybe it was just specifically the fact that there was a dedicated grill to this window and you could still go inside is what they mean by modern drive-through.
Maybe it wasn't just a drive-through.
Yeah. Like they added a drive-through service to an already existing restaurant.
Okay.
That might
That
be
makes
it.
sense.
Yeah, again, like I said, modern. When you do put the word modern into something, it makes you wonder. Well, what was around right before that? Did you guys just remove something that was superfluous? Did you just add something that needed to be there? Because I don't know if you can necessarily lay claim to that. But Wendy's certainly is. It's on their website. That's where I got a lot of their information. Is Dave Thomas created the first drive-in in 1970. They're very proud of this fact, but
Okay.
but again, yeah, I think it's modern is very important to have as a distinguishing factor.
I got one little food thing.
Oh, good.
The first Tootsie Pop commercial where
Oh, really?
the boy walked around, yeah, and like, Mr. Cow, how many licks
Mr.
is-"
Owl.
Yeah, yeah, that's at the end. So I watched the
yeah.
commercial. It's like a minute long, but it's the end. It's the longest running commercial to this date.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
I love that commercial. I mean, as
Yeah.
a kid, that was like my favorite when it would come on. I'd be like, yes, I love the way it looked. It reminded me of Schoolhouse Rock, the animation.
Yeah, first part he walks up to a cow, and the cow goes, "I want you to ask the turtle," or something like that. And then the turtle.
I think I've only ever seen it from the turtle onward.
Yeah, so the cow tells him to ask something else, and then that asks him to ask the turtle, and then the turtle asks him to ask the owl.
Okay,
So it's
yeah,
like
see,
an ongoing thing. And then
I
he
know
gets to the
part
owl.
with the
and
turtle.
then
It really doesn't
Yeah.
make sense for him to keep asking more animals. That's kind of
Yeah.
weird. Like they're not trying the lollipop. It's a weird way to sell your product. So it's smarter to get. Also, it's the turtle is unnecessary even in the commercial that I know. But yeah, he walks with the turtle first, and the turtle says, "Go ask the owl." And then the owl says, "Let's see, a 1, a 2, a 3." And you remember people would say if you had one with a star on it, that was like special edition, and you would get a free one from the ice cream man or something like that.
Yeah, I don't know how true that was.
Yeah,
Or
something that was like very verifiable.
Yeah,
You could just,
yeah.
everyone had gotten them with stars on it because
Yeah.
everyone's friend leaned over and said, "Oh, you can get a free one." But
Yeah,
I never
bullshit.
tried it myself. I got a quarter. That's cool.
Old
I'm good
wise
for it.
tale. Old
Yeah.
wise tale.
Okay, want to get on to technology. April 11th, the Apollo 13 mission was launched. They were trying to go to the moon, and on the 13th, so 2 days into their mission, an oxygen tank exploded, which made them have to abort their mission. There's a very famous movie that describes all this. I've never seen it. Have you?
Yes. Then
I wanted to watch it this week.
1995 Apollo 13 movie.
Yeah, I was going to watch it
it's
this
good.
week, but it wasn't streaming anywhere. So, but on the 13th, an oxygen tank had exploded because of some faulty wiring inside or some such, and they made it back home on the 17th. So, which is crazy to me. You can fly all the way around the moon in less than a week.
Yeah.
And the way that they got back, because essentially when the oxygen tanks went out, that was something they needed for life support as well as to get their thrusters to start thrusting. So they had to move over into the lunar module as opposed to being in the command module and do everything from there, which is not, it wasn't designed to do that. So, I mean, these guys just had to fucking on the fly figure out how do we not just go for forever into space and die,
or suffocate in the process.
Yeah, I mean, you got no time at all to figure this out. So it was they were just, figure out what do we do.
For 3 days, this was on the news. Like,
Yeah,
people were
people were-
all watching this happen live.
They had to make a quick decision. Are we going to reverse the thrusters and shoot back home? But if they had done that, they were going to like run out and they wouldn't have been able to guide their trajectory back and stuff like that. So the way that they decided to do it was to use the gravitational pull of the moon and kind of slingshot themselves back around into Earth.
So crazy.
Yeah, and like one of the things was when they were coming back to figure, because they wanted to land initially, they were going to land in the Indian Ocean, but there wasn't like a lot of retrieval ability there. It was going to be too much for them to have to scramble to get these guys back, I guess. So they were like, we need to have you land in the Pacific Ocean. That's where all our guys are. And so one of the things that had them able to correctly line up with where they needed to go, because their instruments weren't working and stuff, was the moon was supposed to be directly in the center of the cabin window. So they were like lining themselves up with that to keep themselves on track.
Damn.
Just off of the science and the math of it. They're like, all right, if you keep the moon in your window, you'll be going the right direction.
Just the guys at Houston just doing math, and
yeah,
that's crazy. Trying to communicate.
It's crazy and so lucky for these guys that the moon being in the center of the window was the thing that kept them there, because that's like pretty relatively easy to figure out. Okay, there's the window's a circle, the moon's a circle. If I keep that in the circle, we're good. As opposed to being like, you know, if you keep a third of the left side of the moon in your window frame, then you'll be in the right direction, you know?
So crazy.
And saved themselves. Houston saved those boys' lives. I mean, that was a crazy thing. Got to watch that movie, though. Is it like Kevin Bacon and Tom Hanks?
Yeah, I haven't seen it in forever, but I've seen it before.
One more piece of science info, and this also was one of the things that really led to the concern with the environment of the 1970s. In August, a record was released called Songs of the Humpback Whale. I ended up throwing one of these on the playlist pretty late into the game because I found this later, so I don't know if you actually ended up hearing it. This was the first like public demonstration of whale vocalizations. People had heard them in the late 50s for the first time, really. I mean, I'm sure that sailors over the decades and eons have heard whale songs, but like people didn't know about this happening, and people didn't know what they were. So like this one guy started to research it, and he just got super involved with humpback whales and figured out that like these songs have structure to them. They have parts that repeat. They have things that are almost akin to rhymes. Different whales in different areas will use the same song, but outside of that area, the whale songs are completely different. They're passed on from generation to generation, and they change every year. When they change a song, they never go back to the old one, but they'll remember it if you play it for them. Dang. So this was just all this information that was like, whales are way smarter than anyone realizes. They communicate with each other in a way that we don't understand, but they do. Because you can't talk to each other when you're in the ocean. They're a million miles away from each other and shit like that. The only way to do it is these songs.
Well, don't dolphins communicate in the same way? With like clicks and sonar?
Dolphins click, yeah. That's they do that, I believe, with their tongue and stuff like that. Whales will push air through their nasal cavities in order to make their songs. They're just humming at each other, you know? And this really blew a lot of people's minds and helped spawn the Save the Whales movement. You know, anybody saying Save the Whales, that came from this. It also put a bar on whaling for like a year, which not everybody agreed with or participated in, but you know, it was something like the United Nations said, let's not whale anymore because clearly we're doing something pretty fucked up, you know?
Yeah.
This sold over 125,000 copies, going multi-platinum and becoming the most popular nature recording in history.
Dang.
Also, it was
put
included
it on to go to sleep.
Yeah, that's what a lot of people were doing, or they'd put it on at parties or like, you know, dropping acid and stuff like that.
I was like, what kind of parties?
Well, like, you know, the 70s was a very intellectual time. People listened to jazz and shit like that. So I'm sure that there was a thing that they were like, just throw it on in the background, you know? We're just having a nice intellectual conversation. Yeah.
Smelling their own farts.
Yeah, they were probably drinking wine and farting, you know, in each other's faces. This is included on NASA's Golden Disc that was sent in the Voyager spacecraft for intelligent life on other planets. If it exists, they find this, they for some reason have a record player, and they play our record that includes things that NASA felt was important for another species to know about us, and one of them was the whale songs.
No, that's cool.
It's pretty smart too. What if they like are listening to it and they're like, what is all this crazy noise? And they get to the whale song, it's like, oh, okay, here's something I recognize. You know, they're like, that's how we talk. And additionally, there was, in 1979, they included a flexi disc version of this in National Geographic, which was kind of like a weird record that's put on like, not vinyl, but like plastic of some sort. And they were kind of popular way of like promotionally giving out singles and stuff like that. So in 1979, they included a flexi disc in a National Geographic issue, which was distributed to 10.5 million subscribers. And then that constituted the largest single pressing in recording history.
Damn.
So this is a weirdly, incredibly prolific and important piece of not just nature stuff, but recording. And it really changed a lot of things for a long time, but I never had heard of it.
Neither have I. Interesting.
All right, I got it. Actually, I was very pleased to come up with some video game news. First off, I'll just say the work began on a game called Computer Space, which would be the first ever arcade video game and the first commercially available video game. Up until this point, we talked about in the 50s that there was a video game, if you remember that. So on research computers, which were insanely expensive, not something anybody could own, they had video games for 15 years or so up until this point. People were passing them around to other researchers, to other universities, things like that. So they made their way from place to place, but you could never play this at home or at anywhere, unless you had this huge computer. Yeah, and arcades were a thing. So they started to work on this game Computer Space in order to bring the gaming experience to the general public. It wouldn't come out until 1971. And it's pretty similar to the game Asteroids, which I'm sure you've played, where you're like a little spaceship that's in the on the screen going around trying to shoot stuff. It's pretty similar to that. Now, it didn't come out in 1971, so I didn't want to dwell on this one too much, but I did just point out the work began on the first ever video game. So when I found out that there were arcades, and I was wondering, well, what exactly? Because I know there were some video games. What was going on in the actual arcades at this time? That's where I found some information that really excited me and made me... I was like, damn, I can't wait to show Mark some of this stuff. There were a lot of, at this point, arcades were still featuring what's called electromechanical games. Now, these are games that are mechanical in nature, as the name would suggest, that it's like almost like a pinball machine. Things are happening in a physical space in front of you with actual items moving around. But in 1970, there was a bunch of a new technology that was put into them. And this is something that's like, man, I would love to see people put this much ingenuity into what they can do now with some of this stuff and see how amazing it is. I'm pulling up a couple of different games right now so I can show you, Mark. Okay, I pulled up a couple of these electromechanical games from the year 1970. I've got the game Sea Devil, Motorcycle by Chicago Coin, and Super Road 7. All these are 1970. Essentially what they were doing in arcades was playing these sorts of games. So we're looking at Sea Devil right now. There's like a little periscope that you put your eyes up to. It's built a lot like a regular arcade game, or relatively like an arcade cabinet. And then here you go. Here's the actual gameplay. So you got some ships that are going across the back, which are more than likely just projections on the back wall of the cabinet.
Yeah.
And then when the person shoots missiles, there's like a light that's being shown that zips across the floor of the thing, and then it strikes it misses when it misses, and it strikes a sub or an enemy ship when it's supposed to, and then when they get hit, they disappear and the whole screen flashes red.
Dang, that is so cool.
Yeah, saying screen is almost like not doing it justice.
It's like
because
the whole cabinet itself lights up.
Yeah, it's like a three-dimensional space. Here's Motorcycle. This one was probably my favorite.
Oh, this is cool.
There's like a spinning track with a guy on a motorcycle. You have to adjust your speed so you don't run into people in front of you, but you have to get around them, and there are people in the left lane that kind of are slower than you that you have to dodge. And this is all like it's
physical.
A mix of it's like a mix of a physical space, this spinning wheel, and lights and stuff like that. And it actually knows when you run into somebody. This guy's playing extremely well. But when you run into somebody, it makes a crashing noise and you get bounced back. And then Super Road 7 is pretty similar to that one.
Oh, I've seen this game before.
And it's sort of the same thing, except for it's a straight track. It's coming at you. and you're driving and trying to dodge. This guy's actually bouncing into cars and stuff. And you can see when he bounces into them, he gets knocked back and the whole screen slows down for a second.
And yeah, the car goes forward.
I mean,
Dang, that's crazy.
It's insane
So
that they
cool.
were able to do this back then. I have seen a handful of electromechanical games before. I went to some like video or arcade museum in San Francisco. They have one. I don't know if it's still there, but they had one on the wharf. Actually, they show it in the movie The Princess Diaries
Okay.
with Julie Andrews and Anna Hathaway.
Yeah.
I remember the part where she goes and she does the arm wrestling thing. She like pulls out a handkerchief and like wipes off the guy's gross hand before she does it. That's at that arcade that I went to. And they have a lot of these kind of old-fashioned games. But I mean, these have been around since like the turn of the century. And this is just a really cool technology-based one. You know, I mean, but there were a lot of them before that were like just mechanical pieces and like little dolls that would move around and you could control and do stuff. They're so fucking cool, and I think it's a shame that they aren't. They're just a technology that we decided we weren't going to keep up with, you know?
Dang. Well, I mean, it moves on.
But can you imagine if we did that now with like current day tech and abilities?
Dang, yeah. That would be so sick. I got one little toy thing that was revolutionary at the time. So this is a Hasbro G.I. Joe Space-O-Matic. So there's like an astronaut sitting in like a wheelchair almost, but the chair is on like an RC car that you got to, I guess it was able to be programmed. I'm not really sure what that meant, but it showed them like breaking off pieces, like physical little pieces, and adding it to the car, and it would like turn on different abilities of the car. And the car had like a magnet on the bottom, and you could like pick up stuff with like paper clips is like what it showed in the commercial. And then there was a piece where it was almost like a Tonka truck where you can connect a loader in the front and like pick up dirt and like move it and stuff. But it came with like a G.I. Joe, and he was dressed like an astronaut, and it was like a little moon car.
Wow.
It was sick.
That sounds really, really cool. It's like a transformer type of guy. What was it called? The G.I. Joe What-O-Matic?
The Space-O-Matic.
All right, I am about to see this for the first time with you, folks. I did not know about this one. Damn. Looking a little Professor Xavier-y. Oh, wow. Okay, that's pretty cool.
And that piece was the magnet that you could like pick stuff up with.
Dang, this is really dope. I mean, that seems like a toy that would have come out in the 90s.
Yeah. So that was super cool. He almost looks like he's in an electric chair.
Yeah, it does. That's really cool. I wish I had one of those when I was a boy in 1970 recently. The other big toy of the year that came out were Nerf balls. A games inventor named Rain Geyer and Minnesota Vikings kicker Freddie Cox brought Parker Brothers a game idea. They invented a game that was basically football that you could play inside. And I suppose they had other components of it. But Parker Brothers was like, let's get rid of all that other dumb shit, but the ball you guys made is awesome. So they took that ball and decided to market it as Nerf balls, which because I guess Nerf bars were already a thing. So they're named after those, which are on cars. It's like the things on the side, which like racers have, so you don't bump. If you bump into each other, it doesn't fuck up your cars. And they're on real cars too, but like essentially like, you know, plastic or rubber buffers or bumpers on the side of your car called Nerf bars. So they named them after those because these were not going to damage things. Was the evocation they were trying to, pull off. And one of the early ad campaigns for it said, quote, "Throw it indoors. You can't damage lamps or break windows. You can't hurt babies or old people." Why are you encouraging kids to throw this shit at lamps, babies, old people, and windows? They're going to prove your ass wrong because they could definitely do all those things, you know? You can't damage lamps. What are you talking about? You could damage lamps with air if you blow it hard enough. What the fuck? Of course you could damage lamps. But I'm sure there were a lot of parents who were like, this is not as lightweight as you made it sound like it was from that. My grandfather has a black eye.
Awesome.
All right, well, Nerf balls they were trying as hard as they could to get football in the hands of little kids. But football belongs in the hands of grown men, does it not? Let's get on to sports.
Let's do it. All right, so it was actually Super Bowl 4 this year, and the Super Bowl champions were the Kansas City Chiefs. The World Series champions were the Baltimore Orioles.
That's good.
The NBA champions were the New York Knicks. It's
Okay.
not the Celtics or the
Yeah,
Lakers.
yeah. I'm
Tell
okay
you
with
that.
that one. I was hoping it'd be like, I don't know, the Sixers or something like that, but I'll take that.
The Stanley Cup champions were the Boston Bruins.
Okay,
And
cool.
there was a World Cup this year, and Brazil won, and they would be the first team to win 3 World Cup titles.
Good for them. That's cool.
Vince Lombardi passes away at the age of 57. He was a coach and executive president of the Washington Redskins when he died, but he is best known for his coaching of the Packers. He won 5 NFL championships and 2 of the first Super Bowls, the first and second.
Yeah, that's cool, man. He's a legend, and I lived in Wisconsin for a while. In Appleton, there's a Lombardi Steakhouse named after him. That's, I've mentioned, I think, before. It's like where the Packers' opponents will stay at the hotel in town in Appleton.
Okay.
And like they all go to Lombardi's and stuff like that because it's the fanciest restaurant in town. And, yeah, I mean, he's a hero and a legend to the people of Wisconsin.
Yeah,
Can't go anywhere without seeing him.
The Super Bowl trophy was named after him after that.
All right, before I get into TV, we're just coming off of sports. We're about to get into TV. What's the opposite of both of those things? Books. Here's a handful of books that came out this year. For children's books, we have Frog and Toad Are Friends, The Fantastic Mr. Fox, and Mr. Brown Can Moo, Can You? So, lots of animals and the word Mr. in kids' books at the time. And then for, the older scene, you got Bury My Heart at Wounded Knee, The Primal Scream, which introduced scream therapy, which was a big thing back in the day. People were so in tune with their inner selves and things like that. And this was like all the trauma you had as a child never got appropriately addressed. And the way to deal with that is to just fucking scream your lungs out. And like,
I get why that would help.
Yeah, I think it's funny that there was a whole book and a whole movement around it. Where how do you write a book where the end game is scream if you're upset?
I mean, I can get why that would be part of it. I don't think that should be like a therapy you do every day.
Yeah,
I don't know
what goes into it, but well, yeah, it's just a funny, kind of a relic of the time, I think. And the other book, these were all nonfiction. The other one that was a nonfiction book that I wrote down was Future Shock, which was just essentially the technology of the day and stuff like that, and dealing with how people looked at it. But the name stuck out to me right away because there's the Futurama episode Future Stock, which is named after this. Yeah. It's one of those things that, like, I always wondered why that name was Future Stock, and I guess it's because Future Shock was a book that was popular in the 70s. And then to bring it back to Valentine's Day, I do have 2 books to mention: Sexual Politics and the Dialectic of Sex. Unfortunately, when you get into them, they're more about femininity and not really about actual sex. They're talking about gender. So wasn't as sexy as I was hoping, unfortunately. I just learned stuff. But those are all the fun books that I have. Now, on to TV. Some of the top-rated shows of this year, we had Marcus Welby, MD, The Flip Wilson Show, and Rowan and Martin's Laugh-In were all popular. A couple of debuts. NBC Nightly News debuted for the first time. That was pretty important through the 70s. A national news source and stuff like that is what really... I've mentioned before, I think that's why there was a proliferation of serial killers in the 70s. Just the ability to get news out there wasn't as prevalent before this. So, this was a big step forward for culture. I don't know why I just tied it to serial killers only, but I guess also politics, anything really that there was that you couldn't get everybody's eyes on before this. You can't.
Well, the Vietnam War was being shown on TV for the first time. They've never publicized a war like that either.
Yeah.
A few other premieres I got on here was All My Children, The Mary Tyler Moore Show, The Odd Couple, and The Partridge Family.
I watched the first episode of the last 3 of those: Mary Tyler Moore, Odd Couple, and The Partridge Family.
Yeah, what'd you think?
Mary Tyler Moore show's pretty good. The first episode wasn't incredibly strong, but she's so funny. Like she's got good comedic sense, and I mean she had been around already on the Dick Van Dyke Show and stuff like that. So, The Odd Couple, I just have a weird. It always to me feels like I don't understand why they made it into a TV show. I think the story made sense as a movie. It didn't need. There was an end to it. It's 2 men who are forced to live together because their wives are upset with them, so they or leave them or whatever. And one of them's a slob, and the other one's a neat freak, essentially. And as a movie, I thought it's fine. Get in and out. I don't need to see this every single week, personally. But I watched the first episode, and it was good. It was, I can see why people liked it.
Never seen the movie. I've never
Have you
seen
seen
the
the
show.
show?
I should actually. Yeah, I haven't seen any of it, but I didn't know it was a movie. I should say.
The movie's cool. It has Walter Matthau and Jack Lemmon, so it's got two legendary actors. Walter Matthau would go on to play Mr. Wilson in the Dennis the Menace movie from when we were kids.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
The big takeaway, though, I think that most people would recognize from The Odd Couple, both the TV show and the movie share the same theme song, which is and people recognize that song. When I watched the movie for the first time, I was like, "That's what this is from." And then the Partridge Family is one that, as a kid, I always avoided because I just thought this is a fucking ripoff of the Brady Bunch. I don't need to watch the same thing, but just slightly different,
Is it not?
But I mean, it is. But watching it, I was like, "Oh, there's totally a lot of merit to this." Essentially, Danny Bonaducci. Now, when we were kids, he was really famous for having a really rough time. He was on Celebrity Rehab and all those types of shows, and he really was not doing great. The child actor machine we've talked about before chewed him up and spit him out a bit. But my fucking God, was that kid talented. He was just captivating as hell. I always thought I didn't like him as an adult guy, so I figured he probably wasn't great child. Most kid actors aren't great. He was like Macaulay Culkin, but better. He was super fucking funny. He had his whole shtick on the show is that he's like their manager. And so he's like I watched the first couple episodes, actually. I enjoyed it that much that I kept watching it. He was like going around and like trying to get them deals and get them signed and stuff like that. And he's like, "All right, sir, listen, I'm going to have to go over this contract, of course. But there's a couple legal things I want to look at. But obviously my mother's going to have to be the one who signs it, unfortunately." And he's just so good at, like, as a 7-year-old playing this adult kid. And he's really funny.
No, I'll have to check it out. The Partridge Family. I don't know. It's always, like you said, just seemed like a joke to me growing up.
Yeah.
It was that far away. It was a butt of jokes. That's all it was to us.
Yeah, and you do have the Brady Bunch, which was, people thought it was a little bit schmaltzy, but it was more highly regarded. So
I've seen.
Yeah, if you were going to go back and watch one of these shows with a short-haired blonde mom with a bunch of kids and a shaggy dog, you probably are going to watch Brady Bunch. I swear to God, the dog that's in the Partridge Family was the dog from the Brady Bunch. Tiger. He only shows up in the first couple episodes of the Brady Bunch, and then they kind of just forget about him. And I think he was just wandering around the studio, and they were like, "Fuck, we have this dog. What do we do? Put him in that other family."
That golden retriever?
No, he's like a shaggy brown dog. A couple of cartoons that debuted this year were Sabrina the Teenage Witch, Josie and the Pussycats, and the Groovy Ghoulies, which are all notable for being spin-offs of the Archie show. And I guess Sabrina the Teenage Witch, like, when they decided they wanted to make that into a show, the guys at Archie Comics were like, "You're going to use that character? Like, she's not that popular." And turned out to be a huge franchise for decades to come, And Josie and the Pussycats was a band that was in the Archie show. They also got their own show. The Groovy Ghoulies were a band that was on the Sabrina show, and they immediately got their own show, plus a record that came out this year. And additionally, the Harlem Globetrotters cartoon came out this year.
Dang. A lot of cartoons, for sure.
A lot of B-tier cartoons. I mean, these are all, like, well-known, but not necessarily one a lot of people watched, I think.
I'm going to say, yeah, they're well-known to me, at least.
Yeah, I've seen most of these. I've never watched the Groovy Ghoulies, but I had heard the record before, which is just a funny, weird anomaly from time that they used to just come out with. We've talked before about the Chipmunks records and stuff like that they just, come out with full-on... A whole band was hired, and lyricists and producers and shit were hired to play the Groovy Ghoulies, Frankenstein and the Wolfman and the Mummy and shit, and play. And they had to dress up on the album cover and stuff like that. It's pretty funny that those things existed back then.
One thing that came out this year was PBS, Public Broadcasting System, on October 5th. And that's when we would get a bunch of stuff. Mr. Rogers and
Sesame Street.
A lot of different, a lot of kids programming, I guess, came from that.
Yeah. I mean, and I'm sure, a lot of adult stuff too, but adults aren't as concerned with learning as children are, so.
Yeah.
Those are the ones that stick and matter. I mean, and they're honestly pretty important things. I think Sesame Street's a really great resource to just give that out for free to kids and allow lessons to be taught that It's like parents are getting busier and busier, and less focus on morals, I think, as a society as you go along and stuff. And it's like we still need to have kids learn something. I think kids programming has gone away from that.
Yeah, I agree.
I think Nickelodeon is a big. They shoulder the weight of the blame of that. I don't think that they necessarily did anything wrong in the beginning of it, but their point was to come out with kids programming that was what kids want to watch. So it was a lot of like gross stuff and like silly things as opposed to learning.
Yeah.
And that's fine. I think it's okay to give kids some of what they want, but also kids are, notably pretty dumb. So I don't think we need to put them in charge of what they're watching and like allow them to dictate what it's going to be, which is where we are now. Okie dokie. Shall we move forward?
Let us venture forth.
I mentioned the Groovy Ghoulies came out with a record this year, and surprisingly, I was actually pretty shocked at this. It didn't land on the Billboard Top 5 for the end of the year. So, weird.
Top 5. I get why it's on top 5.
All right, but we are going to talk about the top 5 songs for the end of the year, 1970. A couple of really well-known ones. I take that back. These are all extremely well-known songs.
Yes, they are.
This is a good year. I was surprised. I thought this was going to have a couple songs that I didn't recognize because that happens a lot throughout the 70s, especially. But these are all songs that are, that stood the test of time.
I think the number one song was one I recognized the least. Like, I've heard it before, but I know all these other ones, like almost all the words to them.
Yeah. Number one is a song that's a little hard to find an occasion to play it. It surprised me that it was number one. I was like, people were. I always think of driving and the radio as being two things that are inextricable in my mind. But I guess in the 70s, you'd sit at home and listen to the radio, probably. I just don't know when you're going, hey, DJ, will you play that one really slow song that's kind of depressing?
To play it at home.
All right, let's start this off with number 5.
All right, number 5 is War by Edwin Starr. Released on March 6, 1970, it spent 3 weeks at number 1 on the Billboard charts. Starr won a Grammy for the Best R&B Male Vocal Performance in the 71 Grammys. It was written by Norman Whitfield and Barrett Strong for the Motown label in 1969. It was originally performed by the Temptations, but they didn't want to offend the Temptations audience because they thought that the song was just too political.
Mm-hmm. The Temptations put it on their album, Psychedelic Shack.
Yeah.
And so people had heard it, and they kept saying, put that out as a single. And so when Motown was getting a bunch of requests for it, but they didn't want to offend anybody, so they got Starr. He was sort of like a second string act for them a little bit. He had only had one hit so far, and it was number 6 in 1968. So he had done, one song that was received moderately well, but he wasn't anything like a household name or whatever. But when he heard about, the conflict about this song and they were trying to figure out who are we going to have release it as a single, he volunteered right away. This song is also notable for being one of 161 songs that were listed on the No playlist by Clear Channel, which would later on become iHeartMedia, after the 9/11 attacks. So when 9/11 occurred, Clear Channel, who was the major broadcasting corporation in the U.S., they came out with a list of 161 songs that they said, we can't play these on the radio right now for fear of offending people and, reminding people of the tragedy that just occurred and all of that. This one makes a bit of sense, I suppose. These were not songs that they said you're not allowed to play, as far as they say. These were just suggestions that you probably shouldn't be playing these songs.
Distasteful.
Yeah, this one I can understand a little bit, I guess,
Yeah, I couldn't imagine that there was 160 other ones, though.
They range from being, for instance, BYOB by System of a Down. That makes sense. I'll start off by saying this. Rage Against the Machine, it just said all songs on the list. I looked at the list. Rage Against the Machines, all songs. Most other people have a couple here and there. Black Sabbath had 4 songs on there. Metallica had 4 songs. I said System of a Down. It said BYOB, and I was like, if we're gonna go ahead and say a band you shouldn't play anything from, let's say System as well as Rage.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, I would
they're
say
the same
that.
fucking thing. But yeah, but so there are those songs that are like, okay, sure, this talks about bombs or talks about whatever. There was also stuff like What a Wonderful World, both the Louis Armstrong song and the Sam Cooke song.
Just to like because it made people sad or what?
I think maybe they were worried about people playing that ironically, you know, coming on and being like, well, we just had a horrible thing. Here's this song. Isn't that funny of me to do? I think it was, a lot of knee jerk reaction.
Yeah.
But War got swept up in that.
I mean, that makes more sense, I think.
This one is
than
one
some
of the
other
few
ones.
that I can understand. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's go on to number 4, which is Raindrops Keep Falling on My Head by B.J. Thomas, released October 14th of 1969. This spent 4 weeks at the top of the charts. It was written by Burt Bacharach and Hal David. And this was the very first American number 1 hit of the 1970s decade. So to start off the year, this one came in at number 1. This won an Oscar. Last one won a Grammy. This one won an Oscar for Best Original Song because it's featured in the movie Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid from 1969. This song was first offered to Ray Stevens, who we talked about in the 1974 episode because he had the song The Streak. You remember that one?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like it's talking about a guy who's streaking across town, goes to the sports game and the auto shop and stuff like that. So it almost went to him first, but he turned it down. Also, it reportedly was offered to Bob Dylan, who also turned it down. And as far as its inclusion in the film, a lot of people felt it was too modern of a song. Like, it didn't really fit with the tone of the film. Like, why are we breaking down for this weird pop song in the middle of a Western?
I agree with that.
It's like if you just had a period piece Western today and had a hip-hop song in the middle of it, with none of the rest of it being like that. You know?
Yeah. I just think it's a weird flow for it.
Yeah, it is a little jarring. Like, the scene itself kind of stops down the movie pretty heavy.
Yeah.
Robert Redford, one of the stars of the film, said, "When the film was released, I was highly critical. How did the song fit with the film? There was no rain. At the time, it seemed like a dumb idea. How wrong I was. It turned out to be a giant hit."
All right. Moving on. Number 3 is American Woman by the Guess Who. I just want to say I think that's a cool name for a band. The Guess Who.
It is good.
It was released as a single in March of 1970. I couldn't find it.
I got March 21st somewhere, but I didn't know how reliable it was. I just wrote that down for...
Okay.
It was the one date I saw.
Yeah, I just saw March in multiple different places, so possibly March 21st. But we'll get back to you on that. And I peaked at number 9, and it stayed on the charts for over a year. So it never really did super well, but it stayed up there for a really long time. It was created after guitarist Randy Bachman broke a string on Bachman,
which is... Yes, I didn't know that that's Bachman of BTO, Bachman Turner Overdrive.
I don't know.
Taking Care of Business and You Ain't Seen Nothing Yet.
Oh,
Yeah, he would go on to have a really other successful band. I didn't realize that was the same Bachman.
No, yeah, me neither. Okay, well, the very famous Randy Bachman broke a string while on stage, and while he was tuning his guitar back up, he started playing a riff, and he liked it, so he continued to play it so he could remember it for later. And as he played it, the other bandmates all joined in. And then Burton Cummings improvised lyrics to it because he just came in off of back on stage. He didn't realize what was going on, so he just ran back up on stage and started to improvise lyrics. And while they were doing it, they noticed that somebody was recording with a tape recorder. And in an interview with The Used on July 23rd of 2013, Cummings said there was a kid recording the set on a tape recorder, and nobody would have ever heard of it again, but it just happened to be bootlegging the show that night. So they went back and they asked that kid for the recording. And that's the only reason we have that song.
That's so lucky that happened.
Yeah.
The riff is really cool. The lyrics are a little, it makes sense that it came out of a jam session, just going stay away from me, yeah. American
Yeah.
woman, let me be. Yeah, it's like he wasn't sitting there like with a pen and paper going, what am I going to say?
Yeah.
Most people assume, like war, that this is like an anti-America sentiment to the song or an anti-war thing. You know, this is, sounds like it is. You know, American woman, stay away from me, let me be.
Mm-hmm.
But according to Burton Cummings, he said, what was on my mind was that girls in the States seem to get older quicker than our girls. They're a Canadian band. And that made them, well, dangerous. When I said American woman, stay away from me, I really meant Canadian woman, I prefer you. It was all a happy accident. I think that is just so sweet and cute and innocent that this band came to America and they were like, these women are too fast. You know, these good Canadian boys were like, they all grow up so quickly.
They want to show me their boobies.
Yeah. And they're like, listen, you're no good for me. I'm no good for you. Okay. Let's just leave it at that. I need to go home to Canada where the
It's
women
so
are
good.
nice and pleasant. Yeah, I thought that was very, like I said, just kind of a sweet sentiment behind it. So innocent. According to Randy Bachman's Facebook page, I saw a post on there on May 22nd, which said it became the first Canadian single to hit #1 in the United States. That's Bachman's word on the subject. My own research shows that Paul Anka had topped the charts in 1959 with Lonely Boy, which was before the Hot 100 existed.
Okay.
And on the actual Billboard website, they credit the Guess Who as being the first Canadian group or duo to have a #1 hit on the charts.
Gotcha.
So I think they were the first to actually hit it when it became the Hot 100. But, that's sort of some extra qualifiers there. But they were the first group act from Canada to actually hit #1. Oh, the one other thing I'd like to say about this song is that it does have a great joke that goes along with it, which is you can ask people, guess who sings American Woman? Actually, because I did use this on Megan before, and I said, oh, guess who sings American Woman? She went, Lenny Kravitz. And I said, no, guess who sings American Woman? She went, what do you mean, Lenny Kravitz? What are you asking? No, guess who sings American Woman? Oh, it's really great. It's so fucking annoying. Don't do that, folks. It's dumb.
I like it. I can do it to somebody.
#2 on the Hot 100 this year is They Long to Be, in parentheses, Close to You, out of parentheses, by The Carpenters. I always think parentheses in songs are weird. You're not actually shortening the song. You're making it longer, you know? You're adding 2 extra characters. Just name it what you want to name it. This came out on May 14th of 1970. Spent 4 weeks at the top of the charts. This was also written by Burt Bacharach and Hal David. It was first recorded way back in 1963 by an artist known as Richard Chamberlain. It was given to Herb Alpert in 1968, but he did record it. He just didn't like the actual result of that and decided not to release it. The flugelhorn solo in the middle of the song was written for Herb, but he was unavailable to do it for the actual recording, so a man named Chuck Finley, who was a session musician, was used instead. But I guess he did they coached him on how to sound like Herb Alpert, and he did such a good job of mimicking his sound that Burt Bacharach actually thought it was Herb on the track.
Dang.
Also won a Grammy for Best Contemporary Performance by a Duo, Group, or Chorus. This song is one of those ones that I guess I didn't really know this was a Carpenters song. It's another one of those songs that to me has just always existed. Obviously, it's existed since 1963, so even before the Carpenters, but theirs is the most well-known version of this song.
Yeah, this is the one version I recognized. I didn't realize it was the Carpenters either until I saw it on this list.
I like this song a lot. It's very 70s, easy listening, you know?
Yeah, this is like a classic. And this one that's like is like a classic that I feel like hasn't been overplayed.
Yeah, I agree.
You know?
Very romantic song. I mean, it is a little bit schmaltzy, a little bit cheesy, the lyrical content, but it's just so sweet. And it's like, it conveys a very strong sense of romance. One of my favorite facts about They Long to Be Close to You by the Carpenters is that it is Homer and Marge's song.
Oh, The Simpsons?
Yes,
cute.
it was playing the first time he saw her. When he watches her walk by, that song is playing. So it makes him fall even more in love with her. And additionally, it was their first dance at their wedding, as seen in the Simpsons movie.
Oh.
When she tapes over that, because she's going to leave him. A very unromantic moment, but right before that, romantic. Okay, let's get on to the last one.
All right. Number one of the 1970 was Bridge Over Troubled Waters by Simon and Garfunkel. It's released on January 20th, 1970. It was their fifth and final studio album together. The song won 5 awards in the Grammys in 1971. It was number one for 6 weeks in the U.S. and it also hit number one in the UK, Canada, France, and New Zealand.
Yeah, this took home a lot of Grammys. Got Record of the Year as well as Song of the Year, Best Contemporary Song, and Best Arrangement. Those are the 4 it took home by itself. And then the album of the same name took home Album of the Year. So they fucking cleaned up this year at the Grammys. I watched an interview of Paul Simon on the Dick Cavett Show, where he talked about the writing of the song, and he had a guitar with him and kind of brought it out and showed him some of the thought processes behind it and how he based a lot of it on old gospel and stuff like that. And I mean, it's such a beautifully written song. But he talks about how at one point he got kind of stuck in writing the song. And I got a quote here because Dick Cavett asked him, "What makes you stuck?" And Paul Simon said, "Everywhere I went led me to where I didn't want to be, so I was stuck." And I was like, that is such a cool response to that. He's got a very weird delivery. He was like, it was kind of a fucking pain to watch him a little bit because he's like, in the 70s especially, it's like media was new. You know, musicians are used to just getting up on stage, doing their thing, and getting out of there. They're usually pretty reserved people. It's still a lot of that artist mystique, and he's very reserved, and a lot of his answers are really not good answers. So apparently he said on the show that the genesis of the lyric of the song came from when he was watching a scat singer who was performing a song, and during it he yelled out, "I'll be a bridge over deep water if you trust in my name." And I guess I stole it. Is how he said it on stage, and I laughed at that too. Like, that's great.
Well, I mean, inspiration comes from places like that too, you know. I mean,
and then Dick Cavett goes, "That's where I was leading you to," and that man is in the wings right now with the Sabina. Like, Dick Cavett was really funny too. I really enjoyed this interview a lot. That song that he was describing was 1959's "Mary, Don't You Weep" by Claude Jeter and the Swan Silvertones, in case you're wondering. Gospel producer and historian Anthony Heilbut says that Paul Simon gave Jeter a check. So
dang.
He didn't actually steal it. He went back and paid him once the song did well.
That's cool.
But not a very widely reported fact. It's something that Paul just did because he was a good guy. Yeah, he didn't make a big deal about it.
Well, I'm sure he had plenty of money after all of his albums and stuff.
Oh,
and
yeah,
surprisingly,
he was so successful.
This was like their number one, basically, hit. Like, this is made them their most money, I guess.
Yeah, their biggest thing.
But it wasn't somebody told me to name a Simon and Garfunkel song. This wouldn't have been the one I chose.
What do you think of when you think of Simon and Garfunkel?
The 1,000 Miles. If I could have walked.
That's not Simon and Garfunkel.
It's not?
That's the Proclaimers. That came out in like the 90s.
Oh, it's not? I thought it was them.
So your first thought of Simon and Garfunkel isn't even one of their songs.
I guess Mrs. Robinson.
Oh, yeah.
I guess
that is 100% their most well-known song. And I mean, even like Scarborough Fair is kind of well-known. But yeah, they're kind of a weird band in that they were huge at the time. Their sound is so specific that, like I said, there's not really occasion to play Bridge Over Troubled Water unless you have like a very dramatic scene in a movie or something like that, I guess. I don't know where you would be
feeling super sad that day.
Yeah, so it's not really necessarily one that you hear all the time. But it was, I'm pretty shocked at how popular it was back then. Columbia actually was really hesitant to release it because it's, just over 5 minutes long. But really the precedent that they had for the decision to actually release it as a single was Bob Dylan's Like a Rolling Stone, which came out back in 1965. That song's like 6 minutes long. So they went, well, Bob Dylan did it. It's like, that was 5 years ago. You guys hadn't done another 5-minute song in that 5-year period? That's wild. Things were
I guess it
just
just people are like, they won't listen to it for that long, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I understand the impetus behind it. I just think it's crazy that they didn't try it again anytime between that,
Yeah, it's true.
That they just, like, that's, I mean, like, media and stuff didn't move as quickly. They didn't go like, well, we have to capitalize on this. What else can we do? You know, they were just like, oh, I don't know. I guess Bob Dylan did it a couple of years ago. We could give it a shot. That song was popular, you know. This song was replaced on the charts in the number one position by Let It Be by the Beatles. And in a Rolling Stone interview, Paul Simon said, they are very similar songs, certainly in instrumentation. I think that's his way of being like, man, fucking Paul McCartney ripped me off.
Yeah,
You
maybe.
know? I think that's what he thinks. Paul Simon does seem to have a bit of a chip on his shoulder when it comes to this song, because he also he had some regret in allowing Garfunkel to sing it solo. There was a bit of back and forth before they actually recorded the song. Paul Simon thought that Garfunkel should sing it, and Garfunkel thought that Simon should sing it. And eventually, they all kind of decided on Garfunkel singing it. And after the song became a major hit, Paul Simon was pretty salty, and he said, quote, he felt I should have done it, and many times on stage, though, when I'd be sitting off to the side and Larry Netchell would be playing the piano and Artie would be singing bridge, people would stomp and cheer when it was over, and I would think, that's my song, man. So it's like, Dan, you're right there. You're making the money. You're playing the song with these guys, but he's just like, fuck you, Art, you know?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's a reason they broke up, I guess.
Yeah, I think Paul Simon was, I mean, he was the driving creative force behind the band, and he was an extremely talented person. And I think that he didn't really get a lot of the recognition he felt like he deserved, which
Yeah.
I can understand that. But, yeah, going off solo didn't necessarily lead to a bigger career. It just, he probably stayed at the same level he was going to anyway.
Yeah.
This song also is notable for being one of 161 songs listed on the No playlist by the Clear Channel after 9/11.
Really?
This is another one of those.
It's too sad.
I guess.
Make people cry, I guess. But isn't it like it's a bridge over troubled waters? Like it's supposed to be somebody's bridge, somebody's support.
Yeah, I don't understand why this is on there.
Interesting. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe the line "Sail on, Silver Girl" they think could have made people think of an airplane. I guess.
I don't know. Maybe.
Really weird. Yeah, this list was strange. And also, when I read that, I went, they have a song called "Only Living Boy in New York." You're not going to put that on the fucking No playlist, but you're going to put "Bridge Over Troubled Water"? You guys are fucking dumb as hell, man. That's a terrible list. And that was the first song I thought of when I was looking down the list and said, Paul Simon or Simon and Garfunkel, are they on here? Do they have "Only Living Boy in New York"? Nope. Only this one? Man. I think that's about it. Oh, during the recording sessions for this song, it's just worth noting that Garfunkel was off filming Catch-22, the movie, which he is featured pretty prominently in.
Oh, okay.
So they had to film it in like California, so that way he could go back and forth. I mean, they had to record it in California, so he could go back and forth to filming.
Gotcha.
Well, you want to get on to the rest of the stuff that came out in the year 70?
Yeah, let's do it. A lot of good stuff.
Yeah, if you look at our list on Spotify, the first 10 songs on here are the top 10. And then after that, it's a smattering of songs off the top 100. And then all the way up to number 50, which this week is "Call Me" by Aretha Franklin. That hit number 100 for the end of the year. It's number 50 on our list. Everything after that is all songs that came out this year but did not hit the year-end charts. This was the year that Paul McCartney first announced that he was leaving the Beatles. His first solo record came out, which he recorded in secrecy. He didn't let everybody know he was doing this. He on April 10th, the record came out, and in a little sleeve thing inside of the record, there was a mock interview included in which he said he was leaving the Beatles. So that's how the world found out, was actually purchasing. They went to the store and were like, what the fuck, a Paul McCartney record? And then he's like, yep, I'm leaving.
It's pretty genius. It's pretty good marketing.
Yeah. Ringo and John also had their first solo records. George had been doing solo records up to this point. This was his third, came out this year.
Oh, okay. One of my personal favorite ones that I put on all the time still is "Spill the Wine," and that's number 13.
I was just looking at that song literally as you said that. I love that song.
I love that song so much. It's so good.
It's by the band War, who does not sing the song War. But
Yeah.
the band was started. They went on to do their most famous song is "Lowrider."
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Yeah.
years later. That's after Eric Burdon left War. He's the dude from the Animals. So when you hear Spill the Wine, it's the same guy who sings House of the Rising Sun.
Oh, okay.
Not the one from this list, but
Yeah.
you know. There was a House of the Rising Sun version by Frigid Pink that came out this year that did pretty well. Some debuts of this year, which are pretty much all going to be outside of the top 100, but are noteworthy for sure. Black Sabbath and Uriah Heep in the metal world. Uriah Heep's great. I don't think people listen to them very much, but they're really good. UFO, Wishbone Ash, not that well known. Jay Giles Band, we talked about them for Centerfold.
Yeah.
In, I think, 84, possibly. And that was funny because I remember saying, like, oh, I didn't realize they had been around so long, and I got to listen to their older stuff. And then when I was looking at it this year, I was like, oh, yeah, I know Jay Giles Band. They had that song Must Have Got Lost from the 70s. I loved that one, too. And I remember when it clicked years ago that I was like, oh, that's the same Jay Giles Band that does Center Frame. It's such a different song. Must Have Got Lost is a very 70s sort of folk-adjacent rock song. It's pretty good. Also, the debuts of Emerson, Lake and Palmer, as well as Redbone, who would go on to do Come and Get Your Love, which we've talked about. Both Parliament and Funkadelic came out, so the P-Funk movement was started this year. Supertramp, great band.
Yep.
Hawkwind, Kraftwerk, which they're a very early electronic-based band from Germany. Curtis Mayfield's first single, and Eric Clapton's solo record all came out this year.
Dang. A lot of stuff going on. I mean, a lot of great music. The Grateful Dead, The Doors putting out music still, Led Zeppelin, Elton John, David Bowie.
These are all
Stooges,
the lower part of the list that none of this charted.
Yeah.
So surprising.
James Gang, Van Morrison, Neil Young.
Neil Young. Yeah.
Bob Dylan. Well, the Velvet Underground, I get why that didn't chart.
Yeah, that's a good song, though.
Yeah, it is. One that I liked on here is Quartermaster, the Black Sheep.
Yeah, I thought that was really cool. I was not familiar with them. When I was looking at the list of music that came out, there was a ton of prog rock, progressive rock and roll. And that's not really something I listen to a whole bunch. I mean, you got like King Crimson and Pink Floyd are kind of the few that I really delve into at all. But I just saw so many that I was like, I got to put some of this on here. So I gave a listen to Quartermass, and that song is really sick.
Yeah, I like that song.
Also, Liar by Argent. They're another prog rock band.
Charles Manson's on here. I did not notice that until right now.
The second to last song on here is the Humpback Whale song, if you want to hear that. The very last song I decided to include, this was after his crimes, this was after all of that. Somebody decided to put out a recording of Charles Manson's music. That one of the songs from this album is one that the Beach Boys actually went on to record. And not this one, though, particularly.
It has a million plays on Spotify.
It makes sense. I mean, the morbid curiosity of it.
Yeah.
The really fucked up part is that I put it on there just because I saw it was Charles Manson. That was his most played song. I'm going to listen to that one. And then when I was walking around, like walking the dogs, and the music was playing, and I just had it on shuffle, and that song came on, I was like, this song's pretty good. What's this one? And I looked at it, I was like, oh no, I'm a fan of Charles Manson.
No, not like this. It has 30,000 monthly listeners.
They got 30,001 now. You got a new fan, Charlie.
Crazy, man. It's crazy.
You got to separate the art from the artist, right? Man, that's so fucking crazy.
I mean, I don't know.
I'm just kidding. I'm not going to keep listening to that just so everybody knows I'm joking around.
Secretly put it on your playlist.
I know all the words. Look at your game, girl.
But to be honest, the Humpback Whale sounds were dope. So if
cool.
if nothing else, we'll play that. No, but everything else. But
stop right before the last one.
Yeah, if everything else on here though is actually pretty dope music.
It's a really good list this year. I was surprised.
Things that I would listen to, even if it's not like these songs, it's definitely like these bands. Chicago, Santana, Elvis, Mountain, just a lot of Temptations. Go through here, just a lot you'll recognize.
Yeah. A couple that really surprised me for not hitting the charts was like Me and Bobby McGee by Chris Christopherson. That would be done later by who does that one? Joplin?
Yeah.
Also Wild World by Cat Stevens, who would go on to be known as Yusef Islam. Surprised that didn't do better. And actually, I was pretty shocked. Your Song by Elton John didn't chart. And the One that really kind of was crazy to me is that I Think I Love You by the Partridge Family didn't do that well. You know, that's a really popular song.
Yeah. Did Hendrix not come out with an album?
I think he had a live album this year, but I'm sure you can say what you're about to say about Hendrix.
Yeah, he on September 18th, Jimi Hendrix would overdose at age 27. Janis Joplin would also overdose a few weeks later on October 4th at the age of 27.
Yeah, kind of starting up the 27 Club.
Yeah, and then there was people prior to this, but this is where it pretty much became known as the 27 Club because there was people prior to this, these two people being really popular, and then later on more people would add on to the club. But this is after these two deaths is when it came about.
Yeah, and that's so insanely shocking to me now that I'm older than 27 that Hendrix was that young, you know? Like he was and Janis Joplin too, but I mean, he's one that always shocks me. I can't believe that he was only 27. That's like a very very young person.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that fucking talented to change the world of music. And he's one of those guitarists that as a kid and a guitarist myself and stuff, it was like I really looked up to him, idolized him as a youngster. And then as I got a little older, like I kind of dipped away from his music a little bit. And then when I grew back up and started listening to him, I was like, Jesus Christ, dude, he is such an anomaly. Music did not sound like that before him, and it never sounded like that again. I mean, nobody really has ever been as good a guitarist as he is, you know?
Yes, a legend who will go down as the greatest guitarist who ever lived, and people can argue over that all they want, but it's just a fact that
I think so too, yeah.
That he's done more for it. Yeah, Eric Clapton, whatever you can say about other people, but he's done more for guitar and music than anybody else ever has, and probably will. All right, well, do you want to move on to...
Yes, I'm tired of music.
Sick of using my ears. I want to use my eyes.
My ears are sore. I need to have a nice soft movie with a very soft score. A score that's not going to remind me of one of the most fucked up songs of all time.
Right.
The number one movie in the country for the year 1970 was a surprising one for me because I had never heard of it.
Nope, neither have I. Seeing it made me realize I knew more about it than I thought.
Yeah, it's been parodied a lot, I think.
Mm-hmm.
The movie is Love Story. This came out December 16th of 1970. Directed by Arthur Hiller. Written by Eric Siegel. Starring Ally McGraw and Ryan O'Neal. A budget of $2.2 million. And in 1970 to 1971, this is one of those ones that the record keeping for back then was just they assigned your box office total to the year the movie came out. So this one came out December 16th. It didn't really make all this money in 1970, unfortunately. But it's what the records indicate was the number one movie for the year. Most of it was made in 1971, but they did make $106,397,186 for this movie, which is a shit ton of money back then.
Yeah, for sure.
It is still in the top 50 movies of all time, adjusted for inflation.
Did you get a synopsis?
Yes, I have here off of the back cover. Everyone loves Love Story. One of the most romantic movies ever made also remains one of the most enduringly popular. This heartfelt 1970 tale of the love of a lifetime, the most successful Paramount movie up to that time, received 7 Academy Award nominations, including Best Picture, and won one for Francis Lai's magnificent score. As filming was underway on Love Story, the filmmakers knew they had something special. So special that Eric Siegel was simultaneously shaping his best-selling novel from his own screenplay. Stars Ryan O'Neal and Ally McGraw each received Academy Award nominations and became overnight movie sensations for their poignant portrayals of a young couple who cross social barriers, marry, and ultimately face the greatest crisis of all. Not as much a plot synopsis as a synopsis of the movie and how it did, but a lot of useful information in there, Academy Award nominations and so on.
Yeah. Well, what came on back of the VHS wasn't always just to show you in that example, it wasn't always necessarily the synopsis because they had come out, they were already a success, and they wouldn't come out for you to be able to buy it for like 6 months.
Yeah, or longer a lot of the time.
Yeah.
This is one that when we were coming up with the movie to do, we were looking over years to find a romantic movie that had hit number one. And when I saw this one, I was like, oh, let me read the I mean, it sounds like it's a fucking romantic movie, love story. Let me read the plot synopsis. And when we were talking about it and I read marry and ultimately face the greatest crisis of all, I went, oh, she has cancer. Just automatically knew that's what that meant. Because you don't. What's the greatest crisis? Ooh, what could that be? It's like, dude, you guys can't write that shit because it's obvious. She's gonna die. Like one of them, at least.
Yeah.
Now, in terms of its romanticism, it is listed as number 9 on AFI's 100 Years, 100 Passions list, in which they rank down the 100 most romantic movies of all time.
I didn't think AFI cared that much about about movies.
This is AFI, the American Film Institute, not
gotcha.
inside the book band. They have a lot of these 100 years, 100 movies in different. Their initial one was 100 years, 100 movies, where they just talked about from the inception of Hollywood, essentially, to now. It had been 100 years when they first started doing these lists, and they were ranking just the top movies, and then they've done top passion movies, other different types of lists. So this is number 9 on their most romantic movies ever. How did you feel watching this one?
I liked the movie. I appreciate the way it was shot a lot of the times. Like when
I agree with that.
When they go to meet his parents and then they're talking about their night and then it would like jump back and forth to like what they were talking about in the time. I thought that was a cool way to shoot that scene.
Yeah, as opposed to just showing you the dinner and then
because they could have did it literally, and then that would have been as exciting. I think it made it that much better. Things like that.
Yeah, it was an interestingly done movie, and I think that there was a lot of naturalism to the performances and a lot of the shots and stuff like that. It was one that we were watching it. My wife said, she's like, I could see this movie of coming out in the 90s or even today. Like this is a movie that does sort of. There's nothing about it that just is like screams 1970. You know?
Yeah.
I had an interesting time with this movie because in the beginning of it, I kept thinking, I don't like either of them as people. They're kind of annoying. And their love story is based in them being mean to each other, which, in my personal opinion, is a weird basis for people's relationships. It's something you do see in real life where, you know, they're offhandedly just really mean to each other the whole movie. And it's like, that's how the relationship starts. And then it's like, oh, this is a cute thing that they continue now that they're in love. But it's like, can you guys just like be nice to each other? I don't know.
For like a little bit. He even says that though. He's like, I'm not going to build this relationship like in hate. He's like, that's not a relationship to me.
Yeah, but I think it kind of maintains a bit of mean-spiritedness throughout it. And, you know, whatever.
Yeah.
They're in love. That's their love, sure. But I just think as a viewer, it makes me not like them that much.
I agree with that.
And I'm sure it's, you know, the part of a characterization, but I thought it was insane to have him get so upset about her talking to his dad, which I agreed with him. I was like, don't fucking get in the middle of his relationship like that. That's messed up. You can't just insert yourself and make the decision for him. And then he withholds the fact that she has cancer from her.
Yeah.
Like, dude, okay, come on.
Yeah.
You can't have been so mad.
Watching,
get out of your life. Like,
dude, watching that made me think like, I could never not say anything. As soon as I got home from the doctor, there's no way I'd be able to hold that information in.
I just thought it was insane bullshit that he told him. And then he's like,
yes.
Well,
while
she
wasn't even
her?
there.
Like,
then she wasn't even
like,
there.
What?
And he's like, you have to tell her. It's like, that you're a doctor. She should be there with you, first of all. Like,
Ryan O'Neal should not be there unless she's decided he can be. Like, it's so insane, you know? It's like, well, she is a woman, so we'll leave this decision up to you, sir. Like, what the fuck?
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe that's
you can't
why
release
they did it
PHI.
like that.
I mean, that's something that's, you know, a law later. You're not allowed to release PHI without a fucking protected health information cannot be released.
Yeah,
without
it comes later.
That person's okay. Yeah, and yeah, it's just insane. Like to think she found out on her own. Thank God. You know, he almost didn't tell her.
She went and talked to the doctor, so the doctor ended up telling her anyway.
In terms of her disease, it's funny because they don't ever specify what she actually has. You kind of just assume it's cancer, you know. But
the way they talk
don't
about
ever really
it,
say,
like,
I guess.
Well, it said they talk about the white blood cells and stuff like that, so it's
yeah.
So
and she has to go to a hematologist and things like that, but they don't specifically say. So in 1997, Roger Ebert defined Ali McGraw's disease as a movie illness in which the only symptom is that the patient grows more beautiful until finally dying. That was something a lot of people criticized this movie for, was the fact that she just doesn't look sick throughout it, and apparently she's getting worse, and really it's just like by the end of it, she's, lying on the bed perfectly coiffed and stuff like that, and so people were like, what disease does she have? Can I get some?
Yeah, yeah.
This movie the success of this one did bleed over a lot more than I hadn't even heard of this movie. Apparently there was a TV show that came out in 1973, as well as a sequel called Oliver's Story that came out in 1978. Had some staying power. Additionally, there's a new television series based on this, that was developed by Ryan Murphy, the guy behind Glee and the American Story franchise, American Horror Story, and whatever else, things that all belong to that. He's in that universe. They're coming out with a new show called Love Story, and it actually releases today. Valentine's Day 2026.
Okay. Well, we'll have to get out there and watch it.
The romance just keeps on giving, folks. Wait, is today Valentine's Day or just this week is Valentine's Day?
You'd have to look at the calendario.
Let's see. It comes out on Saturday. For some more Valentine's Day tie-ins here. The writer of this, Eric Siegel, he actually first wrote this as a screenplay, but didn't get anybody who was interested in wanting to purchase it. So it was not actually a book first. The little synopsis mentioned that he was developing both at the same time. It was either his agent or a Paramount executive, there's stories that go both ways, who told him to write a novelization in order to promote the movie. So while the movie's being made, he's also having to do double duty and make this into a book too. And the book was released on Valentine's Day in 1970.
Oh. So this is coming full circle. I like it.
Yeah. Roger Ebert was quoted as saying that the movie was infinitely better than the book. So I guess the book isn't worth checking out, because the movie's not like it was critically loved. It was sort of, I think the reception was a little lukewarm. I have a couple of critics' reviews from when the movie came out that sort of show the two different viewpoints that there were on this one. People were generally of either one of these two. Charles Champlin, not Charlie Chaplin, but Charles Champlin of the LA Times wrote, "The plot line has been honored many times. It's the telling that matters. The surfaces and the textures and the charm of the actors. It's hard to see how these quantities could have been significantly improved upon in Love Story." So he's basically just saying the world that they built, the characters, the actors, that's what makes this story worth watching. Because, it isn't necessary. It's just two people fall in love, then she dies, and he's sad about it. That's essentially the whole story, right?
Yeah.
So, something that's been done before. But he liked what this movie brought to the table in terms of that story that's been told. Now, Newsweek, their critic named Judith Christ, her review was simply Camille with bullshit. Camille was an old play that is basically more or less the same story as this, but it's a lot heavier. Camille is about a prostitute that the guy falls in love with, and then, so it's not just, what? She's not rich? It's like there's a lot stronger reasons for there to be objections. So some people thought it was, just a schmaltzy version of a movie that's been a million times done over. So I think I fall somewhere in the middle of that. I think, it was sort of generic and whatever, but I think that the actors did a good job and everything. So when it did get to the end, I was sad when she died, maybe, because then you're forced to look at it in your own life and go, fuck, what if I had to deal with that,
Yeah, for sure.
I'm not sad for Ali McGraw. I'm sad when I go, man, can you imagine like having to be either one of these people would be so hard.
Yeah,
and some people have to go through that, so.
Yeah. Everyone eventually, right?
Yeah.
Anybody in a
it's
committed relationship, I guess.
Yeah, that's such a crazy part about life. Everybody has to deal with death multiple times over, probably, and we just don't really dwell on it,
We all deal with it in our own way, I guess, but yeah, it's something that we all deal with. It's a timeless problem.
I always like to get into some of the casting stuff here. So the part of Oliver was turned down by both brothers Jeff and Beau Bridges. I would have liked to see Jeff Bridges in it. I love Jeff Bridges.
That's what I think I would like to see him that too.
Michael Douglas turned it down, as well as Michael York, who is known for Logan's Run and playing Basil in the Austin
Yeah.
Powers series,
Mm.
and also John Voight. He turned it down too, but he did pop up in another movie this year I'll talk about. And Ali McGraw says she remembers auditioning with Christopher Walken, who is actually who the director wanted for the part. Christopher Walken comes up a lot as an alternate, like somebody who just missed a lot of these roles, Like his career was almost way different. He's known as just being like a villain or like a weird comedy guy. Like he's got a very specific thing that he plays. And he was almost the lead in so many movies and just didn't make it. Another person who turned down this movie was Burt Bacharach. He was initially approached to do the score. So, I mean, God, that guy was
He does a
fucking
lot.
everywhere. Yeah.
Everywhere, man. I didn't realize that until he started doing
He
this
backed
show.
out. Yeah, I know. Neither did I. I mean, I've heard his name. Really, another reference to Austin Powers a second later. But that's where I know Burt Bacharach from, is when he's playing What the World Needs Now is Love, Sweet Love, when they're in Las Vegas. And he goes, "Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Burt Bacharach." And that's really like what I knew him from for the most part for most of my life. So he backed out when the producers said that they wanted a song similar or a score similar to Francis Lai, who they actually eventually ended up hiring. So we've seen that happen before too, where the people who make the movie go, "We want something in the vein of this." So then that person just shows up and goes, "I think I could handle that for you."
Yeah.
This movie was the first time that a film got permission to shoot at Harvard.
Oh, that's cool.
But a bunch of trees on campus were damaged by like film crews moving stuff around and doing things. So that led to the university denying most subsequent requests. So they were like, "We're not sure if we want to do this." "Okay, fine. You guys can come and do it." And they're like, "Fuck, we knew we shouldn't have let them do that. No more of that."
Damn. How
Yeah.
did they do that? How did they
I don't know.
mess
I guess
up, how do you mess up trees?
Yeah, it was
Idiots.
probably like things that were tall, just going through like camp, like there's a lot of plazas or common areas, in campuses that are like surrounded by trees. So I'm sure they were just moving in a bunch of equipment and just knocked a bunch of branches down and shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, really messed that up for everyone else, but for them they get to be like, "Yes, we're the one who got in there." This film also led to a spike in babies named Jennifer in 1970. And there would go on to be 14 years of it being the number one given feminine name.
Holy shit.
Yeah, really solidified it for forever. Yeah, Jennifer, I guess, is a super 70s name.
Yeah. Interesting.
All right, the score of this, we just mentioned a second ago by Francis Lai, that is immediately recognizable as being the basis of the song Dance with the Devil by Immortal Technique. I sent that to you the other day. Do you know that one already?
Yes.
The
I knew the
hip-hop
song.
song?
Yeah, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And that the background is the theme from Love Story. If you don't know this song, it's like a super, super messed up song about a guy who's trying to get involved in a gang and the lengths he has to go to make that happen. It really is probably the worst song I've ever heard in terms of content.
Yes. Hands
It's
down.
fucking brutal. So I don't know if I recommend listening to it, but if you have the curiosity, go for it. Just be warned. A lot of trigger warnings.
And it's very, it's brutal, to say the
It's
least.
disgusting, honestly.
Yeah, in many ways.
Yeah, it's really fucked up. So I think it's nuts, though, to have taken this. Why was that? It's such a weird. I can't understand the thought process behind that. Like, who knew the song first? Who brought it up? Or did Immortal Technique go like, "Hey, remember Love Story? Like, that's a very nice movie. What if we take that and make it really dark?" I don't know.
Let's make it the darkest thing ever.
Yeah. So that was a little jarring to start the movie and be like, "Oh, no. Stay away from that lobby. Don't go in there."
I didn't even catch that, which I'm happy I didn't.
Really messes up the lineage of this movie a little bit. Last thing I'll say about this one is that I watched a sketch from the Carol Burnett show that came out a couple years after this one. They did a spoof of Love Story the year it came out called Lovely Story, but that one's not as popular as the sequel they did, the sequel sketch a couple years later. And I watched that one, and it was really funny. I was fucking cracking up during it. Basically, this is if she had survived. And so he comes home, and he's like, her husband, he comes home from work, and Carol Burnett plays Ali McGraw's character. And she just won't leave him alone. She's hanging all over him. She's still so in love with him. Oh my god! And he's just like, I need to go to the bathroom. And she's like, love means never having to go to the bathroom and stuff like that over and over again. And then he finally was like, you know what? I can't keep doing this. I need a divorce. And she's like, and then so anytime he tries to leave, she ends up coming down with another illness, and the doctor comes in and shit like that. It was a really funny sketch though. She's hilarious. I just brought up, and we mentioned earlier on, so I almost missed this, was I needed to make note of the fact that one of the most noteworthy things about this movie is that it spawned the phrase, love means never having to say you're sorry, which would be something that people said for many, many years.
Yeah. Yeah. To be honest, I don't think I've ever heard anybody say that.
Oh, really? No, it's a pretty common phrase back in the day. I mean, it was enough that the Love Is comics got their big bump when they said love is being able to say you're sorry.
Yeah.
And I guess I see it both ways. I think there are people who have a hard time apologizing, and if you really love someone, you can.
Mm-hmm.
But in the movie, it's sort of like, if the love is true, real love means never having to say you're sorry because you know the other person didn't mean to hurt you.
Yeah. You're already forgiving them without them saying it.
Yeah, it's like, of course you're sorry. You know, you didn't mean to do that. Like, it's having understanding for your partner, which I think is a nice sentiment.
But still, it's like also assuming, like, I'm not saying I'm sorry. You know I'm sorry. Like, that's kind of fucked up
that's
too,
what I think.
though,
You can twist it to a bad way. I think that's what the distinction is. Real, true love between two people means that up until that point, it's not this person's just being an asshole constantly. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like, oh yeah, no, obviously you fucked up. I know that. You know that. Let's just be in love. You know?
Yeah.
And I think that there is a level of that to, being in a committed relationship where you are able to, I think when you're young and everything, or you're fresh in a relationship, it seems like, I need to save this. I need to fix this. You can't go to bed angry, that kind of stuff. And when you get older, you're just like, oh, look, I'm not going to leave you because you fucking pissed me off. So just don't worry about it. We're both going to move on with our lives. So, But definitely was a catchphrase throughout the 70s that people would say. And I mean, I heard it a lot growing up, and I never knew it was from a movie or anything. I just kind of heard it referenced. I think it's another thing we talk about all the time, that like in the shows and things we watched as kids, there were references to older things that just you would have no reason to know that, So I've heard that before. You know what? I probably have just heard it like once or twice, and I just remember it strongly,
Yeah.
Because you're right. It's not something that's like said constantly anywhere. It's just something I did recognize as a phrase, and I didn't know it was coined here. I guess I thought it was probably just some old saying that people say sometimes,
Kind of was by the time we were hearing it.
Yeah,
or could
exactly.
register it. All right.
Got anything else to say about Love Story?
Did you notice that Tommy Lee Jones was one of the roommates?
Yes. This was his first movie appearance.
Oh, shit, really?
Yeah. Thank you for bringing that up. I would have totally fucking breezed past that because when I saw him, I went, "Oh my god, that's Tommy Lee Jones!" And then you just don't ever see him again.
Yeah.
I mean, he's one of those guys that you never see young in anything. So, I think the youngest I'd ever seen him was in 1976's Rolling Thunder. He's got a somewhat prominent part in that. But I mean, he's one of those guys who just like, you're watching that scene, you're like, why are they playing poker with somebody's dad? He's just always looked old as fuck, let's see. Well, how did you feel about the movie? Let's give this a rating.
All right, what's our ranking system today?
I don't know. Out of 1,970
scarred faces from hockey.
Okay, I like that. Yeah, that's good. I forgot about his hockey situation, that he was a hockey player. I'm going to give this one 1,360 scarred faces.
Yeah, I think I'm probably around there. I'm going to say 1,289 scarred faces.
I didn't dislike it, but it's not one I'll probably ever rewatch.
No, I won't rewatch it again either.
Okie dokie. Let's see what else was happening at the movies this year. I'm going to go ahead and give you guys the top 5 movies. Number 1 is obviously Love Story, but number 2 was Airport, which would be later parodied as Airplane. You have MASH at number 3, which would go on to be a very, very successful TV show. You have Patton at number 4 about the general. And the number 5 is The Aristocats, which is the Disney movie about fancy little felines. Have you seen any of those?
I've seen The Aristocats a bunch.
Yeah, I love that movie.
I did watch it again this week.
Me too, yeah.
And
then, this cats are so fucking cute, man.
And then I watched I watched bits and pieces of Patton. I didn't get to like finish the whole thing.
It's a long movie. I
Yeah.
watched the whole thing.
Oh, you did?
It's a very, very well made movie. The explosions, the shots, the locations that they used are all fantastic. I just don't give a shit about war movies. They just don't interest me in the slightest. So it was a slog for me. I just didn't care. I think he and George Scott is incredible in the role. Like, it's a really well done movie. The story of it, I could care less. You know,
Yeah.
like, oh, that guy fucking told the troops to go over there. My God, what else did he do? He told the troops to go over fucking there, dude. You know, but
Yeah.
it's really well made though. If it was 2 hours, I would have been happy with it and been like, actually, I really enjoyed that. But you know, it being as long as it was, I just let it play. You know, it was fine. I didn't hate it, but not for me. MASH, I've always wanted to see.
I didn't watch it. I wanted to. It was your night. I did not watch it.
I love the show, and I have never seen the movie. But yeah, just it wasn't streaming, so I didn't get around to it. Beyond the top 5 movies, many other films were released this year. Yeah, of note, not only was Love Story released, but also a film called A Swedish Love Story. I thought that was funny. The Swedes are like, we're going to get on this too. One of the big ones is 5 Easy Pieces, which, again, I have not seen. There were a handful of, like, in the same vein as MASH, these sort of comedy takes on war movies were pretty popular at this point. So you have MASH, but you also had Catch-22, which I had never seen before or read, and I watched that for the first time. That's got Art Garfunkel as well as Jon Voight in that movie, and I fucking loved it. It's really funny. It's also really interestingly told. Oh, Alan Arkin is the star of it, and I love Alan Arkin. You also had Kelly's Heroes, which is very similar to Hogan's Heroes. And Suppose They Gave a War and Nobody Came was another movie. These are all comedies based on war, so I think people were trying to take the piss out of war a little bit here.
Yeah.
Another thing sort of similar to the main characters in Love Story, a big sort of subgenre of films this time was the coming of age, a young white college male. They usually have money, they come from a nice family, and they're upset with the war and sort of their place in life and having to mature through that area. And you had a couple of movies from that time period that were like that, called Getting Straight, The Strawberry Statement, and The Magic Garden of Stanley's Sweetheart were all in that same vein. They all did moderately well.
I never seen it. Never seen any of those. Have you?
Neither have I, no. But I know that genre of film, you know, where
Yeah.
somebody just sort of, you know, wandering around sort of morosely about all the shit, the way the world is. And that's sort of how the main Ryan O'Neal's character was in Love Story a bit. So here's some more that had similar names. That's all that I know about these movies. You had Tora, 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 and Tick, Tick, Tick. Weird for 2 movies to come out with such similar, repeated 3 times, a 4-letter word beginning with T. Also, Tora, Tora, Tora. Each Tora ends with an exclamation point. Each tick has a ellipsis before it, so a lot of punctuation you don't necessarily see in movie titles. You also had The Executioner and The Traveling Executioner. Both came out this year. And more similar movies in the horror genre, you had Count Dracula, Scars of Dracula, Taste the Blood of Dracula, The Vampire Doll, The Vampire Lovers, and House of Dark Shadows, which is based on the TV show Dark Shadows, which is about vampires. So vampires were extremely popular this year. Not to be outdone, there was one movie called The Horror of Frankenstein. So Frankenstein was like, me too. Let me get in there. The only movie that's a horror movie from this year that I've actually seen, and it's kind of borderline thriller and horror, is The Bird with the Crystal Plumage. It was Dario Argento's first movie. I love his films. He did Suspiria. It's probably his most well-known one. And it's pretty good. This one's pretty good. It's a little bit more, like I said, it's not necessarily a horror movie, but it's got some horror elements to it. I like his later work a lot more, but this one's still pretty good.
There was one that I didn't get to watch, but I really wanted to, was Beneath the Planet of the Apes. Did you watch that one?
I was actually just about to bring that up.
Oh, really?
I have seen this movie in the past. When I was a kid, I was really into the Planet of the Apes movies, so I saw all of the old ones.
Oh, wait, I think I have seen this one.
I was going to say, that's why I thought you might bring it up, because I remember you saying you had seen the old
Yes, I have seen this one.
because this is the second one.
Yes, I have seen it.
Yeah, Beneath the Planet of the Apes is the sequel to it. I think this is the first sequel out of all of them. This one is still pretty good. I don't think any of them are there's definitely diminishing returns on the Planet of the Apes franchise. The first one's great. This one's still pretty good. They get worse as they go along. I watched one of these movies that I watched this year was Little Big Man. It's a Western movie. Another Western that came out this year was Mules for Sister Sarah. That one's probably a little more well known, a Clint Eastwood joint. But Little Big Man stars Dustin Hoffman as like a 120-year-old man in the beginning of it, and he's being interviewed, and they're like, we want to hear about soldiers who were around and knew General Custer. And he's like, well, I knew General Custer. Let me tell you the story. And then he starts, and because the guy's like, well, we're interested in getting what people thought of the relationship between the Union soldiers and shit and the Native Americans. And so he's called Little Big Man because his, like, wagon train or whatever was besieged upon by the Native Americans. And when they saw he was a kid, they didn't kill him. They just brought him in and started raising him. So he was raised with them. The second the white man comes in and threatens them, he folds immediately. He's like, hey, I'm white too. Don't shoot me. And so then he just becomes a white guy for the next 15 years or whatever. Then he goes back to the natives. And it's about him going back and forth and sort of bridging the gap between the two. And he's actually there at Custer's last stand and stuff. It was pretty decent. I enjoyed it as a movie. There's some, probably a little bit problematic depictions of some stuff, but it's fairly respectful of the natives,
Okay.
for its time, especially. And it was a really entertaining movie, I'll say that much. As far as comedies, you got Hi Mom, Beyond the Valley of the Dolls, Start the Revolution Without Me, and one that is it's pretty funny, actually. I've seen this before. It's called Watermelon Man. This was just back in college. I remember people saying, like, oh, you can go to this website and watch movies for free. I don't remember what the website was, but it was just like, sort of like a Netflix kind of sort of deal. You just get on there and then have a bunch of movies that you could watch. And this was before people did things like that. So I was like, oh, cool, let me check out that website. And on the front page was Watermelon Man. And I was like, I've never heard of this, but it looks fucking bonkers, so I'm going to watch it. I've never met anybody else who knows what it is, but it's the story of a man who's played by a black actor who in the beginning of it has whiteface on, and he's playing a white guy. And he's kind of an asshole. And but he's a successful, white member of society, and then he gets turned black by some sort of magic happening. I don't remember exactly what the crux is of why that happens, but he becomes black. So then it's just the actor without the face paint on, and then he has to learn to assimilate into society as a black guy. And the whole time he's trying to turn back into a white man, but by the end of it, he just isn't able to, and he has to just go on being black, and his life falls apart, and he has to figure out where his place is in society. And it's actually a really good movie. It was funny. It was, I don't know that Whiteface wouldn't be seen again until the Wayans brothers and White Chicks. And he looks just as insane as they do as a white guy. He looks fucking crazy.
That's awesome. I want to watch this movie.
It was good. I recommend it. Check it out. I haven't seen it in, I was 18 when I watched that. So it's been a while. It's been 15 years.
Him as a white guy's hilarious. Just looking at pictures is so good.
He looks crazy. Another one from this year that I checked out was called Quaxer Fortune Has a Cousin in the Bronx. When I saw the name, I was intrigued immediately. That's a bonkers title for a movie. Quaxer Fortune Has a Cousin in the Bronx. And it starred Gene Wilder and Margot Kidder. And it's set in Ireland, and he has an Irish accent the whole time. He actually does a pretty decent job. I was pretty surprised.
Okay.
And then it's about him. He walks around scooping up horse shit and selling it as fertilizer. And basically everyone in his life is like, you got to get a real job. And he's like, no, I love my job too much. And he just doesn't stop. He doesn't want to do that. And then Margot Kidder comes in and he falls in love with her and stuff. It wasn't great, but I love Gene Wilder and Margot Kidder, so it was worth checking out for me. I wouldn't necessarily recommend it. The kiddos of the year, you had Puffin Stuff, which I didn't know they made a movie about. H.R. Puffin Stuff, the insane-looking, like, he's sort of a precursor to Barney and stuff like that.
I know what you're talking about.
I used to, when I was younger, I'd watch the TV show while smoking weed because it's really fun for that. But I've never watched the movie. I wanted to find it, but it wasn't playing anywhere. And another one that is similarly aimed at children but great for watching under the influence of different substances is The Phantom Toll Booth, the cartoon version of that. Last two things here. There were a handful of music-based movies that were pretty popular. Woodstock, which is like the really long movie that details the Woodstock concert. And I've seen that before.
Yeah, I've seen that before. The Woodstock documentary. Mm-hmm.
It's like 3 hours or something like that. It's pretty
yeah,
cool.
I watched it
Very,
a
very
while
cool.
back though, when we were like 18 or something.
Oh, okay. There was also the Let It Be movie, which a lot of that footage would go on to be used in that Beatles documentary. What was it called? Get Back?
Mm-hmm.
But the movie that came out prior that they talk about a little bit in that documentary is Let It Be. And then also the Rolling Stones had a movie come out, Gimme Shelter, which described their tour in 1969, culminating in the Altamont concert, which we will definitely talk about when we get to 1969. And the final movie I would like to let everyone know about is a little film called The Party at Kitty and Studs. This movie is notable for being Sylvester Stallone's first starring role. And if you know anything about where Sylvester Stallone got his start, you'll know that this is a softcore porn movie.
I had no idea.
Yep, that's where Stallone came from. I mean, he was an actor. He was trying to make it as an actor. This was his first role he landed. I think he might have done a couple things, but this was his first starring lead role.
Quote unquote actor.
A softcore porn movie.
That's crazy. I never knew that. That's where Sylvester Stallone got his start. It's so funny.
He's also got a pretty famous thing where he was in a trailer and didn't realize his mic was on. I don't think it's from this movie though. It's just another that like he got recorded giving out blowjob instructions to somebody, some
That's
unnamed
awesome.
person. So yeah, his early days were fraught with sexual tension. More Valentine's Day stuff for you, huh?
That's what you do on your Valentine's Day. I thought I saw a fun little fact in the movie department that the tickets prices for a movie on average across the country was $1.55.
That's cool. I wonder how much that is for inflation.
I don't know.
Let's see. Be about $12.94 today. So
Still.
kind of average, I guess.
Yeah, I don't know when's the last time I went to the movies and paid full price. The ones by my house on Tuesdays is like cheap, so we go there.
I think a movie nowadays is probably. I mean, in my head, the ticket price is $15.
Yeah, makes sense.
So I don't know though. I think it's probably more than that actually.
Probably could be.
I think
like
it's probably
20.
outdated.
Yeah.
I guess I remember movie tickets being like $12. Like that's what I think they kind of were for my whole life, and then at a certain point, like everything else, they just skyrocketed and never went back down.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay,
Alright.
well, I guess we're done with the movies. We have one last piece of business to attend, and that is to choose an artifact for preservation. All else is forgotten to the annals of time, and we bring back a couple things. I want to preface this by saying these aren't going to be what I chose. I just forgot to mention it earlier. Willie Nelson had 2 albums that came out this year. And also his very famous guitar Trigger, which is featured in his King of the Hill episode and everything. He had gotten that in 1969. But in 1970, his ranch burned down. And he ran into the burning building to save his guitar. So like this thing is, and he's been playing it ever since. He still plays the same guitar. This is like his thing. So in 1970, it almost vanished from the earth, but he managed to save it.
Dang, that's so cool.
I say all that to say that was the shirt I was wearing today, is a Willie Nelson shirt.
Hell yeah. Go, Willie.
It says, have a Willie nice day on it. This shirt isn't necessarily representative of what he looked like at the time. This is pre-braids and pre-beard Willie Nelson. He just looked like a normal man. Now, for my choice of what I'm actually saving. This is a hard one, actually. Shoot. I think I'm going to have to go with Catch-22. I really enjoyed that movie. I'd never seen it before, but out of all the stuff that happened this year, there's not a bunch that I'm like in love with. So I'm going to just go ahead and save that movie because it's one that I will rewatch.
I am going to save American Beauty, the album by the Grateful Dead.
Oh, okay.
Because
That's a good
I
one.
really like that album, and it's actually one of my favorite albums of all time, and I'd be really sad if it went away, so I'm saving it.
That makes sense. That's a good one. All right. Well,
All right.
I guess that's it for the most romantic year of all time.
Yeah, well, you get American Beauty. You know, there's beauty in that.
There sure is. And America is beautiful as well, is it not?
I mean, not 1970 so much, but, you know, other years.
Yeah. Oh man, it's crazy how often we do the show and years just remind me of nowadays. You know?
Yeah. History
That's the point of this
repeats
show.
itself.
We're taking it upon ourselves from now on. We are doomed to repeat history. Please learn from this so we don't have to talk about more shootings and just crazy wars and all this other shit. Please.
Yes.
All right. And with that, we wish everyone out there a wonderful Valentine's Day.
Happy Valentine's Day, everybody. And
Smack your loved ones in the face.
give her a good smack.
Give
or
her a
him.
smack from us.
Eh.
We love you.
And until next time, we wish we were then.
then.